In this video, we're going to show you how to install a fuel pump and sending unit on your Jeep Grand Cherokee located inside your fuel tank. So once you have your hood open, go ahead and locate the fuse box just beside your battery. I'm going to pinch the tabs here, lift that up. Now you're going to have three sections of your fuse box over here. You want to go to the center section, and the third relay down and in is a 20 amp for the fuse, for the fuel pump fuse. I want to go ahead and locate that over here. And this is our center section. There's our 20 amp fuse. You want to grab a pair of pliers and pull that fuse. Once that's out, set that on top of the battery, and you can go ahead and close that down again. Now what we're going to do is hop into the vehicle, and we want to go ahead and start the vehicle. Now what we're doing here is we're depressurizing the system of our fuel. So you want to go ahead, if the vehicle starts, let it run until it just dies out. We're going to do this a couple different times here. At this point here, if the vehicle isn't starting, our system is depressurized. There's no more fuel in that system to go ahead and cause any pressure systems later on. And let's go ahead and disconnect our battery. We'll remove our ground terminal here. We're going to use a 13 millimeter on the nut side and a 13 millimeter on the bolt head side. Go ahead and loosen that. Give that a wiggle. Pull that off and set it aside. And on the bottom side of the bumper here, you're going to find 4 plastic push pins securing the back bumper. You're going to use our trim tool here. I want to try and get in here and pop that button out. There we go. And go ahead and remove these buttons. We want to do that for all 4. Using your 19 millimeter socket, loosen and remove the driver's side rear wheel lug nuts. Remove the wheel and set it aside. On the driver's side of our skid plate here, we have our wiring harness. We're going to use our trim tool. We want to go ahead and separate this. Right behind the coil spring here, we're going to find a 15 millimeter bolt. This secures that strap from our shield to the frame. On this bracket right here, we want to remove the retainer clip supporting that wire harness. So we're going to use our trim tool. Good, pop that off. In the back here, we have a connector attached to our little plastic retainer clip. We're just going to pop that retainer clip off. Remove the splash shield here. We're going to use our trim tool to pop out these plastic retaining buttons. Sometimes these break. If they do, you just have to source some locally to go ahead and replace these after. These 2 bottom ones have a center pin on them. I'll use a small pocket screwdriver, push out the center, or push it in. And that should allow you to go ahead and grab those and pull these out. Go ahead and set that aside. We want to go ahead and prepare this bracket to come out. We're going to use our trim tool. We need to separate this harness. So pop out the little retainer buttons here. And we have a hose with a bracket coming through with plastic push pins here. Let's go ahead and see if we can pop that out. You can see ours is kind of crumbling from rust here. So we're going to do the best to try and salvage some components out of this. Pop our hose out of this bracket. We have these two 13mm nuts here. Let's go ahead and loosen and remove those. Let's go ahead and get that upper one. If you follow this bracket up here, there's going to be a 13mm bolt on the inside. We're going to put our ratchet up in there with our socket. We want to loosen and remove that bolt. Now if you're able to get your bolt out of there, you want to go ahead and set that bolt aside. On this shield here, you're going to have 3 bolts. Now ours are rusted beyond recognition. They could be either 8 or 10mm. You want to go ahead and loosen and remove those there. And then on the bottom, there's going to be 3 more bolts. These are 10mm on the bottom. Loosen and remove those. Let's go ahead and remove this bracket. Set that aside. You want to gain access to the hose clamp, to the rubber hose, to your filler neck tube right here. We're going to use a 9/32 socket on our 1/4" ratchet to loosen and lower this hose clamp down. And once you get that loose enough, you could probably spin that clamp around, give it a little more room to move that ratchet. Now we do want to loosen this enough to lower that hose clamp down out of the way. Now right beside your fill tube, you have the vent line right here. We're going to use our pliers. I'm going to grab that. We're going to twist and pull that down and off. Well, we separate it from here instead of up top, not a big issue. We now want to go ahead and separate our filler neck. So I'm going to grab that, give it a twist, make sure we can break that free. Grab that hose and pull that down and off. Now we're going to take our filler neck here, and I'm going to just grab a towel here and tuck that in. I want to keep any debris from getting inside of that fill tube. And we have another component on the back side right here. It's round, like a canister style. There's 3 hoses going to the bottom of it and 1 coming out. The one coming out on the top side goes to the top of the charcoal canister. We want to go ahead and pull that off. So now you have this unit free like that. Now on the passenger side of our gas tank on the front side here, we have 2 11mm bolts here, or nuts. We want to go ahead and loosen and remove those. So at this point here, we went ahead and put our gas tank support underneath here. You can use your jack with some blocks of wood or something to that effect there to support the tank. Now, you're not going to raise the vehicle off of this. You're just going to support it. So when we remove the bolts, the tank just doesn't drop down and crash on the ground. If your vehicle is equipped with a trailer hitch unit itself, the brackets supporting this also support the gas tank. If you do not have a factory trailer hitch or hitch at all, then the bolts for the tank are going to be a standalone setup. We're using an 18mm socket with our impact gun and extension. And we'll get the second one over here. On the driver's side here, start removing the 3 bolts over here. There's a 4th bolt on each side that almost fits into a pocket and it's recessed. So you want to go ahead and loosen and remove these as well. Now that we have this one out, let's go ahead and repeat for the other side. Up behind your bumper cover, you're going to use an 18mm swivel socket to go ahead and get to that. Now on the passenger side here, we're going to pull that bumper cover back a little bit, and we have that other bolt on the trailer hitch receiver. I need to go ahead, loosen, and remove that. So at this point here, we're going to go ahead and lower the tank just a little bit with the hitch receiver. Before you drop down the gas tank any further, you want to go ahead and disconnect your trailer hitch wiring harness. That way it doesn't get caught up when we're lowering this down any further. The tank lowered down partially. What you want to do is come on over here. You're going to find your charcoal canister. There's one more vapor tube popped in here. So we're going to go ahead and pull that off. That is going to release almost all of our ports over here. Now right here we have a couple hoses. Want to pull these up and away. Make sure they're not going to get tangled with the tank as we drop it. Now there's an electrical harness that comes down and it runs down to a bracket on the front side. I want to go ahead and disconnect that connector. Now the electrical connector itself is held on by a little plastic tab. We're going to push the electrical connector towards the passenger side and slide it off of the retainer. You can see the little groove on the back side here that plastic clip slides into. It's going to give us better access to our locking tab here. And we did go ahead and spray this down with some penetrant to try and break some of the garbage out of there. And we're going to press in on the tab. There we go. On the passenger top side of the tank, we're going to locate our fuel pump and sending unit over here. Now there are 2 lines that come into the top side. We need to disconnect these lines from the top of the tank. It's going to be easier for us to go ahead and remove the passenger side rear wheel, so we can go ahead and get our tool up inside, reach up on top and separate these lines. Using our 19mm socket, go ahead and loosen and remove the lug nuts. Now that we have the lug nuts removed, remove the wheel, set it aside. Now on the top of our fuel tank here, we have the two lines here, and there are little retaining clips that lock the line to the top of the sending unit itself. There's a blue one here, there's a green one here. Now we did spray this down with some penetrant on here to try and loosen it up. What you want to do is be able to go ahead and spin these end connectors here, and the hoses themselves are spinning. And that tells us that we're not binding in place. Now these clips will pop out. You're going to rotate this to the point where you can get to the clips on the back side. And we can push these clips out. And you can see that the clip itself came out, and you can push it back in. You push it back in, it snaps into place, so we're locked on. So just go back. I'm going to pop that clip off. Now before we started the job, we did depressurize the system, but that doesn't mean there may not be a little bit of fuel left in this line here. So we're going to use a towel. We're going to go ahead and grab that one with the blue connector and pull this off. Right, that allows you to gain access to the other clip on that green one there and pop that up. With that separated, you can try and pull that off. I'm going to use a pair of hose pliers and wiggle that off gently. I'm just going to use a towel here to wipe up any residual gas here, kind of set it in there. And then we can go ahead and lower the tank. Just do a quick inspection around, make sure nothing else is still connected. It looks like we're pretty clear. Now at this point here, we have a pan right here. So when we remove our fuel pump and sending unit, we can go ahead and put that right into there. Gasoline is going to leak out, so you want to have something to go ahead and prepare for that. And we're going to use our tool here. This tool is to go ahead and unlock our locking collar. When doing a job like this here, it's best to be in a well-ventilated area. We're going to use a block of wood here on the top tabs to try and loosen our collar. And we have that unit spinning out, which is good. We see a bunch of debris breaking free. We're going to continue to vacuum this out here to keep that clean. We don't want dirt falling inside the tank, so go ahead and clean that up. We'll put our tool back on here. Go ahead and remove that collar, and we're going to vacuum one more time. Now that you have everything cleaned up, you want to pay attention to where the fuel tubes are pointing. They're pretty much right in line with this section right here. If you want to go ahead and mark the tank or something like that there so you know exactly where it's going. Go ahead and pull up on this here. Let some of that gas drain out of there. Now the tank itself has an O-ring seal on it. You want to go ahead, you can pop that out like so. Go ahead and inspect it, make sure it's not damaged in any manner. And you can go ahead and reuse that. Now if there is any damage or anything to it, or it seems like it's dry rotted or splitting, you definitely want to go ahead and replace that. Take your fuel pump. You're going to insert the float level first. Get that into the tank. Swing that filter down inside. And push that in and lower that down. Now we're going to install our locking collar. Slide that over. Now you want to go ahead and position the fuel pump unit itself. There is an arrow right here, and if you turn that just a little bit, that should be pointing at our vent. And just as we had removed it previously, our fuel lines are going to be pointing right in line, along in line with this groove. So let's go ahead, push this down, and we can go ahead and start to thread on our collar. Now you want to make sure that that threads on evenly. You don't want to cross thread it. Now in this case here, you can use the block again to go ahead and lock down that collar, or you can use your tool. Let's go ahead and opt for that block. Now, if you're using the block, you can have an audible sound that you'll know that that is pretty much on there nice and snug. If you're using your tool, you're going to feel it snug down. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That lock collar is not going on any further. You want to check around the perimeter here for any type of gap. If there's no gap, that's also a good sign that your lid is all the way down. Now at this point here, if you have your trailer hitch and it's in good condition, you want to go ahead and install that now. We found that ours was too rotted to safely put it back on and to utilize. So we're going to install our fuel tank and skid plate here without the trailer hitch receiver. At this point here, let's go ahead and raise up our gas tank in a position. Now before we get too high, let's go ahead and get to the top of the fuel tank and install our fuel lines. Now on the top of the tank, I'm going to pop off our caps here. The line with the green lock fits on this one here. Press down our lock, and we do the same for the blue one. Want to make sure that our electrical connector is heading over towards the passenger side. Now at this point here, we're going to get our tank up a little bit closer. I just want to go ahead and position this. Get our gas tank lined up. Go ahead and grab our connector here. Go ahead and plug this in. There it is, just clicked into place. Push that lock on over. Go ahead and install your connector in the bracket. All right, go ahead and push the buttons through for your fuel pump connector here. We'll install our differential vent tube and put on our vent tube to our middle port on our charcoal canister. We'll pull down our fuel filler neck here. Let's go ahead and install this one here. Push this down and on. Line this up here. Pull out our towel. Install our filler neck tube. Now with that lined up, I'm going to go ahead and jack up the tank just a little bit more. That's going to give us a little more flexibility for that hose to pop on there. Go ahead and push that hose up and on there. Go ahead and put your hose clamp up into place. And we'll go ahead and snug that down. And we'll go ahead and snug that down pretty good. Don't want to have any vapor leaks from this or fluid leaks. Now go ahead and tuck these hoses on the back side of this bracket here. I'm going to pull those over and then feed these up and over the skid plate area, just like so. Let's go ahead and raise up our tank. And so let's line up our holes onto the frame. On the back side of our tank on the driver's side, I want to install the shorter bolt on this bracket. Now, the tank itself has a little bit of leeway. We can go ahead and wiggle that around a little bit. Go ahead and get that started. Thread it in as far as you can. And go ahead and get a couple bolts started on our skid plate. And put a little bit of anti-seize compound on the threads for that. And then we have two more on the back side here. Now go ahead and wiggle the tank around a little bit here. And go ahead and get those bolts started. And on this heat shield here, you want to make sure that you have your retainer clips in place. You want to position this, get that up in place, get those bolts started. We did have to replace ours because the old ones were just rotted and broken. Snug these two down. I'm going to raise up our tank the rest of the way, make sure that it's fully seated, and we'll go ahead and tighten down our bolts. Install our retainers here for our harness. Tighten down this bracket bolt here. Now our harness tab here broke. It's just old and brittle. So we're going to use a wire tie. I'm going to go ahead and just run this around. This is basically just to keep the harness out of the way of traveling suspension. Just want to snug it up. It doesn't have to be super tight, just take up the slack on it. I'm going to install our bracket here. Now when you're installing this here, this unit right here needs to screw to this bracket. So you're going to put 3 bolts in here. Ours, you can see the plate is totally rotted. We cannot reinstall the hardware there. So we're just going to install the 2 on the top. And once you have those installed, you want to come on down, install the 3 bolts down below for the vacuum unit down below, and then install the 3 on the bottom and the rest of your brackets to secure to the body itself. Install the harness bracket right there. Line up the mud guard. I'm going to install some push pins here. Now we can lower our gas tank jack. And we'll remove that. The next thing we want to do is install the buttons securing the bumper to the skid plate shield. Install the wheel. Once you have the wheel in place, we're going to start all of our lug nuts by hand. Let's go ahead and snug those down. Torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Bring it up. Set it into place. And we're going to start all of our lug nuts by hand first. Once we have all the lug nuts on, let's go ahead and snug them down. Torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Open up that fuse box. Take that 20 amp fuse and install that back where it was. Close that up, reconnect your battery. Install the negative battery cable. Make sure it goes down all the way. We'll tighten the bolt, and you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.